The sound reached Willowbank like a drowned gong. Every bowl on the treatment table trembled. The black ribbon beneath Finn's ferry bulged upward, and the gray hand caught around the reed pulled the rest of its body into daylight. Paper tally cord bound both wrists. Its face had the slack, swollen ruin of a corpse that had spent weeks underwater. It climbed anyway. Tang Bo drove a ferry pole across its chest before its teeth reached the landing. The corpse bent backward around the wood, spine making a wet series of clicks, then seized the pole with both hands. Finn caught Tang's belt. 2 boatmen caught Fun. For one ugly breath, 5 living people and 1 dead body hung over the same strip of black water. Catch line! Lin Mei shouted. A loop dropped from the landing frame. She had tied it while the rest of us watched the face. Tang kicked the corpse's elbow through the loop, Finn hauled, and the boatman pinned the arm against a post. Zhao Yulan laid the flat of her white sword across its throat. Do not cut it into the river, she said. The corpse's eyes rolled toward her. My left eye still bled beneath Su Lian's cloth, and blue ghosts doubled the sword edge. I used no technique. The body pushed against Zhao's blade with enough force to shake the landing. Dead? I asked Su Lian. She did not answer from 10 paces. She came close behind Deng Bo's shield, watched the throat, and pressed 2 fingers beneath the jaw while Zhao held it still. No pulse. No breath. Skin has separated at the neck. Dead before it moved. A corpse, then. Not a sick person wearing a frightening face. Not permission to be careless with what remained of him. Tang Bo and Finn rolled the body into a wet sail. The boatman crossed the cloth over its mouth, elbows, knees, and ankles, then tied each fold to separate landing rings. They did not drive hooks through flesh. Su Lian cut the tally cord only after Su and copied the 3 inked characters still visible on it. County Core Sorting, Emolan Red. Disposal Labor, Reach 9. Finn stared upriver. There is no legal sorting yard at Reach 9. There is a cliff, Tang said. And a road wide enough for ministerial wagons. Another pale face rolled around the bend. Then 3. The water warning sounded again. Reed Ferry's horn held one long note followed by the spoken call from runner to runner, river closed, north channel closed, draw only from covered wells. Willowbank's gong answered with the corrected cadence. South Bank's whistle came faintly through the marsh. Lin Mei divided the landing before anyone asked what I wanted. Body catch on the west posts. Living rescue on the east. Do not mix ropes or blankets. Tao, every house that drew river water since dawn sends the jar and the dringer's name to Su Lian. Ma Jun, cover the south well. Nobody lowers a bucket they brought from the river. Captain Deng moved his tax soldiers without a spear wall. 1 squad carried clean grain store jars to the well. 1 closed the river path below the landing. 1 joined Tang's catch crews under village rope captains. The 4th remained with Wei Lian, the silent archive, and 6 protected clerks. Deng did not abandon a dangerous prisoner because a new danger had arrived. Zhao looked at me. Your parole permits traveled to a protected evidence site under my control. It does not permit a blind dive into corrupted water. I wasn't planning one. Lin Mei tied a rope around my waist. I was planning not to dive while badly tied. You are not leaving the bank yet, she said. This is so we can find you after you ignore good advice. My state gave her reason. Level 5. Body 9, Speed 8, Spirit 5, Perception 7, Will 10. Essence 40. Azure Influence 17, Crimson 16, Difference 1, and Stable. The core ledger remained locked. The rest was written in bandages. The opposing channel in my left thigh pulled with every turn. A fractured rib carried fresh paper bruising. My right shoulder had torn deeper. Old arrow and core glass damage kept 2 fingers numb. The side cut, recovering back and upper thigh tears, calf and foot strain, burned palms, blood loss, cold exhaustion, residual tremor, mirror shield bruises, collar lift strain, cheek wound, and back bruising had all survived level 5. 3 thread readings had added a migraine, nosebleed, blood at the left eye, and blue afterimages. Leveling had healed none of it. 6 corpses entered the catch reach together. They came upright beneath the surface, feet drifting downstream, heads tilted as if hearing music below us. 3 wore tally cords. 1 wore a woman's blue work jacket. 2 had iron rings around their waists. None breathed. Tang Bo set 3 boats sideways above the landing, bows toward shore and sterns held by doubled ropes. Finn took the middle tiller. Boatmen crouched behind wicker screens with padded poles. On shore, South Bank charcoal crews carried green timbers for a body rack. Willowbank mill workers brought blank sailcloth. Su Lian marked an examination strip beyond splash range. They will pull boats under if we meet them one at a time, Tang said. Then do not meet them one at a time, Fen replied. She let the first corpse pass the bow, turned the ferry broadside, and trapped all 6 against the hanging catch net. Poles crossed. Shore teams hauled. One corpse tore free and climbed the net toward a boy on the upper rope. Captain Deng's soldier caught the boy by his jacket. Lin Mei's sling stone broke the corpse's grip at the wrist. Not the skull. Not a dramatic kill. One hand released, the net folded, and 8 ordinary backs pulled the dead onto cloth. The last body came with its eyes shut. When Su Lian touched its neck, the eyelids flew open and a woman screamed from inside the corpse's mouth. Cold, she gasped. Please. I can't move my arms. This throat had a pulse. Zhao lifted her sword. Living lane. I shouted. The rope teams changed direction without dropping the body. Healers brought a clean board. Tang cut the iron waist ring instead of the skin beneath it. The woman coughed black water, but her chest rose again. Behind her, the river struck the cliff a second time. The Drowned Gong was closer. We did not follow the sound until every household had a drinkable source. A closed intake is not water. It is only the beginning of thirst. Willowbank's south well could supply its own people if buckets moved in shifts, but Reed Ferry's shallow well tasted of silt after heavy use, and South Bank depended on marsh channels connected to the river. The black ribbon had not reached those channels yet. Not yet was a deadline, not reassurance. Elder Shen took the clean water board. He could not hurry on his bad knee, so people came to him. He marked 3 columns in charcoal, protected source, carrying route, mouth served. No one counted river jars as safe because the water looked clear. No one poured black water through grain cloth and pretended dirt and spiritual rot were the same problem. Ma Ji knew the buried irrigation cuts better than anyone, though his legs still did not work. Ma Jun rolled his cart to the old south spring and listened while his brother tapped the ground with a mallet. They found the stone cover beneath a patch of winter grass. The spring had been sealed years earlier because the path was inconvenient, not because the water had failed. Guofen's mill crews lifted the cover. Zhao held a detection charm above the first bowl. The paper remained white. Dragon eyes, used for one short ordinary look without thread reading, showed no visible corruption in the clear stream or in the insects living under the lip. That did not prove every cup safe. Su Lian boiled one sample, set another in sunlight, and put 3 small river snails into a third. The snails kept moving. Willowbank source, Elder Shen said. Covered. Guarded. First jars to children, fever patients, nursing mothers, work teams. Then households by lane. Reed Ferry had a harder answer. Its deep ferry well stood on high gravel half a mile inland, under a collapsed rope shed. Tang Bo sent boatmen with shovels. And sent the widows who knew which old winch beams had rotted and which only looked ugly. Captain Deng provided 12 soldiers to lift the roof without letting armed men control the queue. When the well opened, its first water smelled of old wood and iron. Helan looked through her uneven horn lenses and saw no black grit. Zhao's charm stayed pale. Su Lian's assistants discarded the first 20 buckets, scrubbed the stone lip with boiled well water, and lowered fresh village rope. A runner carried sealed samples to Willowbank's treatment shelter. South Bank had no deep well. Lin Xiao solved that front. Charcoal burners used a hillside seep above the kills during dry months because river water cracked hot clay. It flowed slowly, but 3 clay settling tanks already stood beside it. South Bank crews emptied ash, washed the tanks with the first clean flow, covered them in woven lids, and began filling jars. Mule teams built a shuttle from Willowbank's spring until the tanks caught up. The clean sources gave us supply, not abundance. Elder Shen and the guild heads measured cooking, drinking, and wound water first. Laundry, dyeing, grain soaking, and irrigation stopped. Livestock went to fenced rain ponds after Lin Xiao checked every ditch. Lin Mei ran the information route. Every water order traveled as sound in words. The horn warned. A runner repeated the source and measure. A charcoal mark appeared on each approved jar lid. Empty jars returned on a separate lane from sick house vessels. Children carried no full jars. 2 adults shared each pole. Within 2 hours, all 3 villages had covered clean water moving. Within the same 2 hours, 9 more bodies reached the catch line. 8 were dead. The 9th was a man with a pulse so slow Su Lian found it only after warm cloth lay over his throat. His skin had not decayed like the true corpses. Black filaments ran under it from an iron waist ring. When Zhao cut the ring, he began whispering numbers. Basket 4. Basket 4. Do not tip basket 4. The first living woman said the same phrase when she woke enough to hear him. Her name was Luosher, a ropemaker from Reed Ferry taken 6 months earlier for unpaid transport levy. The man was Bien Gu, a road digger from South Bank. Both had been assigned to the hidden sorting reach. Their bodies had been held in cold essence suspension underwater. They had drowned and revived in fragments, each time the ring forced a breath from whatever corrupted reserve remained. They are victims, Su Lian said. Alive now. That is the disposition that matters. She treated them under open shelter. No one tied their hands when spasms bent their fingers. Healers used padded boards to prevent falls, warmed them gradually, and collected the black water they coughed in sealed pottery. Zhao assigned 2 guards to protect the pots and the people, not to question them before they could speak. The 14 true corpses recovered so far went to the west rack under wet cloth. Su and Molan copied tally cords, clothing marks, old wounds, and any name the villages recognized. Families could view faces from behind the splash line when Su Lian permitted. Those not yet known received numbers tied to cloth, never carved into skin. The dead bodies still moved when the river pulsed. At the third underwater impact, every covered corpse arched at once. Ropes groaned. The living suspended victims did not. Their black filaments tightened toward the north, but their eyes stayed human and afraid. That difference gave us a boundary. Something upriver controlled dead tissue and the rings on living workers through related corruption. It had not erased the difference between them. Tang Bo counted what the catch crews could hold. 14 dead restrained. 2 living recovered. More coming. If the main flow turns after sunset, the west posts tear out. Then pointed to the old willow pilings below the landing. Set the second catch there. Let the current press cloth between rows, not bodies against one rope. Xiao Rin and Han Mu arrived from Reed Ferry with spare ferry cable. Shinli brought the dock roll and recognized the tally pattern as a county disposal code. Lin Xiao came from South Bank with mule jars and 6 charcoal workers. Yifan took a second treatment station so Su Lian could stay with the suspended victims. Zhao drew the scout route in mud, 1 bank team, 2 tethered boats, downstream catches held, and no entry without a harness, hook, and named line holder. I looked at my rope. Lin Mei tightened it again. Now it is less badly tied. The drowned gong sounded a 4th time. This time, something in my right core answered. Crimson did not speak a word. It inhaled. Will ruts cut deep into the cliff above reach 9. Core glass glittered beside false drainage markers. Behind thorns, Finn found an iron cap in the ground. Kushan had come under guard because he recognized relay seals. His wrists remained bandaged from Wei Lian's bonds. He crouched beside the cap without touching it. County disposal seal, he said. Records say failed cores are stabilized in lime boxes and returned to licensed furnaces. Do the records say throw them off a cliff? Lin Mei asked. No. Molan's copied archive abstract listed 16 sealed wagons received, then 16 empty wagons dispatched as roadstone carriers. No furnace receipt lay between. Bien Gu, warmed enough to speak, had described basket 4. Luosher had remembered a cave mouth behind falling water. Their testimony gave us the place before any technique did. The bank team consisted of Zhao, Lin Mei, Fin, Tang Bo, Xiaoren, 6 boatmen, 8 of Deng's soldiers under Sergeant Liu, Ku, and me. Below, Han Mu held the first boat line. Shin Li held the second. 2 more crews waited at the downstream catches. Ma Jun drove a clean water cart along the road. Yifan's treatment sledge followed behind it. We reached the cliff rim and saw the dumping yard. 30 split baskets lay under torn oilcloth. Most were empty. 7 still held lumps wrapped in paper, horn, or blackened sinew. A timber chute ran from the yard to the river. Every board had been stained red-brown by essence and rain. At the lower end, a barbed iron grid caught large pieces while runoff carried dissolved corruption through. The grid was basket 4. It shook with every drowned gong impact. Below it, a knot of harvested cores had fused around the bars. Beast cores, failed human graft stones, collar beads, and at least 2 dragon blood nodules had been dumped together until pressure and rot joined them. Black water streamed from the knot. Thin cords ran downstream on the surface, directly visible for several paces before current and shadow swallowed them. 7 shapes moved inside a cave behind the chute. Living shapes. One raised both hands when Finn called. Another crawled away from her voice. 5 hung in net hammocks above the water, iron rings around their waists, chests rising only when the core knot pulsed. The yard attacked. 3 baskets snapped around loose front soldiers, the chute twisted, and core glass splinters flew at exposed faces. Wicker shields came up. Zhao split the first cloud. Lin Mei dragged Ke behind the cap while Fun and I rolled behind a wheel stone. The core knot had initiated force. It did not wait for our examination. The chute slammed downward. Its lower grid tore out of the bank and dragged the suspended workers toward the river. Tang Bo threw a hook through the cave net. Xiaoren wrapped the line around a tree. 6 people leaned back. The net stopped with its lowest worker's hair in black water. I opened dragon eyes without the refinement. Visible corruption burned through the chute. The fused knot at the grid was one active hostile source. The flying splinters carried discharge from it. I could see injuries on the workers, cold damage, ring punctures, starved muscle, shallow breathing. I could not see who they were, why they had been taken, or every route hidden inside rock. One surface cord tightened from the knot to a basket jaw around Lu's soldier. Another crossed open air to the suspended net ring. The control was active. Both source and visible targets faced me for one narrow angle. I activated thread reading. 15 essence left my reserve, dropping 40 to 25. Azure influence rose from 17 to 18. Crimson remained 16. Difference 2, stable. Cold drove through my damaged left eye like a nail. The visible world separated into direct pressure. 5 true active links left the exposed side of the fused core knot. 1 controlled the chute joints. 3 ran to attacking baskets. 1 entered the worker's common net ring. A dozen other lines flashed from wet cordless fragments. Some were active discharges with no controlled target. The refinement did not label danger for me. It distinguished link geometry where I could see both ends. Common ring holds the workers, I said. Do not cut it until every hammock has another line. 3 basket routes meet the knot's east face. Chute line exits under the second iron bar. Then the chute rolled, placing timber between me and the source. Every link vanished. I shut the technique after 3 breaths. Blood warmed my cheek beneath Su Lian's old cloth. Blue afterimages multiplied the cave mouth. Lin Mei took my chin and turned my face toward her. How many fingers? 3. She had raised 2. You do not choose the next shiny thing. Tang Bo and Xiaoren took the geometry. Boat crews attached separate lines to all 5 hammocks. Lu's soldiers pinned the 3 attacking baskets with wheel stones. Zhao drove her sword through the second iron bar, not the worker ring, and held the twisting chute away from the cave. The knot changed tactics. Black water surged backward, carrying hands of mud, hair, and bone. 1 wrapped Tang's ankle. Ben chopped it with a boat axe while Lu's men covered her. I reached the knot from the dry side. Its east face looked like a furnace clinker filled with teeth. Ember Fist could break the 3 visible basket routes for 5. Heat near dumped cores might also detonate the whole mass. Ku saw where I was looking. The iron grid grounds discharge into water, he said. If you heat the knot, it vents through the river. Can we isolate it? The basket hinge plate. Heat that. Not the cores. Sergeant Lu shoved a wet shield between my hand and the splinter cloud. Ben held an iron wedge against the hinge plate with tongs. My numb fingers could not grip it safely, so Chow tied my wrist to the hammer loop. I spent 5 essence on Ember Fist. Current essence fell from 25 to 20. Crimson influence rose from 16 to 17. Azure remained 18. Difference 1, stable. Heat traveled into ordinary iron for 1 brief pulse. When turned the wedge. Tang struck it from above. The hinge plate opened. 3 basket links lost their hardware. Lu's trapped soldiers kicked free as the paper jaws softened. The source still held the chute in common ring. Lin Mei had already crawled into the cave on a clean upper rope. She moved from hammock to hammock, tying each worker to an independent shoulder line. 1 Woken fought her, screaming that basket 4 would drown everyone if it tipped. She did not slap him or call him irrational. She looped his wrists in front, pressed her forehead to his, and told him his own name after Luosher had supplied it, Renyu, stonecutter, missing 8 months. He stopped fighting long enough for the knot to pulse again. All 5 secured. Lin Mei called. Zhao cut the common ring. The chute convulsed. The fused cores tore free of the grid and dropped toward black water. I put my shoulder under the broken east bar. Pain folded the arm. Body 9 was not enough to hold a wagon's worth of dead essence. Sergeant Lu and 3 soldiers joined from one side. Tang, Fun, and Xiao took the other. Boat crews hauled from below. Zhao's sword pinned the knot against cliff stone. Ku folded the disposal seal inward over the exposed basket hinge. Mo Lan read the recorded furnace requirement aloud from the abstract. Not because words made the pollution repent, but because Ke needed the correct seal form while his hands shook. The core knot cracked away from its discharge plate. Black cords snapped across the water. Corrupted dumping knot defeated. Dragon essence gained, 50. Current essence rose from 20 to 70. The 7 living workers remained alive. 2 could stand with help. 5 came down in hammocks onto Ethan's treatment sledge. The fused knot lay pinned on dry stone under Zhao's sword. Then every corpse downstream screamed through a dead throat. The sound answered from beneath the cliff. Something far larger than the dumping knot had felt its food cut off. Zhao wrapped the dumping knot in opposing seal cloth with blank clay between. Deng's soldiers carried it to a guarded, stone-lined charcoal pit unconnected to water. It remained dangerous evidence, not a prize. The 7 workers went to South Bank's dry kiln shelter. Runyu named Jiamin, Wu Di, and Pan Rui, 3 others remained work numbers until memory returned. Yifun ordered warmth, tiny drinks, and slow feeding. No technique could replace 8 months of starvation. Downstream, the problem changed shape. The 14 restrained corpses had pulled the west rack halfway out of the bank. 8 more dead bodies had reached the lower catch, making 22 true corpses. Luo Shi and Dian Gu remained the only suspended living victims recovered there. All 22 dead mouths opened when the dumping knot broke. Their scream carried no words. But 4 voices answered beneath it. Up! Rope! Please! Mother! Fan heard them from the second boat. She drove her tiller toward the sound before Tang could stop her. Hanmu paid out the waistline. Shinli set 2 catch poles across the gunnels so the boat could not roll without fighting both. 4 upright bodies drifted below the black surface, deeper than pole reach. Iron rings at their waists shone when the water thinned. Their faces turned toward Fan's voice. Living minds, suspended like Luo Shi and Dian Gu. Between them moved a braid made from human hair, tally cords, and pale root fiber. The braid did not lead upriver. It led down. Zhao and I took the bank above Fan. Lin Mei stayed with the rope captains. She was the better choice. My damaged eye made knots into doubled snakes, and her hearing could separate one cruise call from another. We bring them up one at a time, Tang said. No one enters. A corpse struck Fan's hull from below. Then another. The dead had left the west rack by tearing their own arms through restraint cloth. Not all 22. 6. They moved underwater faster than bodies moved in air, pulled by the braid toward the rescue boat. True corpses, no pulse, no voices, no mind Su Lian could find. They were weapons made from remains. Boatmen met them with padded poles. A pole can turn a body. It cannot argue with 6 hands around a hull. Fan's bow dipped. Black water spilled over the boards. Hanmu's shore team hauled. Shenli cut the trailing catch net before it became an anchor. Tang jumped onto the stern with a second pole. Lin Mei called the pull in 3 beats so 20 people did not yank against one another. I ran the bank. Wind step cost 20 and required clear footing and breath. The bank was wet, but flat stepping stones from the old towpath made one known angle to the willow post beside Fan's stern. I could have used it. My fractured rib would allow one measured breath. The danger was not distance. It was what happened after I arrived with 50 essence less than the techniques the day might demand. I ran normally and got there 2 heartbeats later. One corpse climbed the stern. I trapped its elbow against the gunwale and used my hip, not my failing shoulder, to roll it into a waiting sail. Tang and Fan wrapped it. Another seized my ankle from below. Xiaoren's ferry hook caught the back of my belt before I went in. Your rope is decorative again, he said. Lin Mei had tied it to the bank. A corpse had bitten halfway through. The 4 living voices sank. Zhao saw the braid tighten toward a hidden source below them. Thread reading could show an active link only if source and target were visible. The targets were visible through 1 handspan of black water. The source was not. Spending 15 to confirm that darkness hid a source would buy pain, not information. We lift the living rings with hooks, Fan said. The braid is wrapped through them, Tang replied. Pull one and it pulls all 4 downward. Then all 4. They built a square lift. 2 boats faced one another with a gap between. For shore cables ran through pulleys improvised from smooth wheel hubs. Boat hooks reached each iron ring. Lin Mei assigned 1 caller per hook and 1 person whose only job was to watch the victims' mouths. Su Lian came to the bank with reed tubes and warm boards. Zhao held her sword ready for the first visible strand. All 4 bodies rose together. Mud peeled from a braid of dead fingers, collar beads, and a black paper bundle. Zhao cut the first exposed strand. Hair lashed Zhao's sword arm and caught Fan's throat. The 6 hostile corpses dove under the victims and pulled at their ankles. Lose soldiers through catch lines. Xiao and Han secured 2 corpses, Xinli pinned another, and Tang cut Fan free while she kept one hand on her victim's hook. The black paper bundle opened. A county corpse restraint seal lay inside, turned backward. It had been designed to keep dead laborers from rising during disposal. Fed by dumped essence and the pressure below, it now commanded them to seize anything living above. Kushan shouted from the bank, "Fold the command face inward." The seal was wet, wrapped in hair, and 3 feet below the surface. Zhao's sword could cut the braid but risked the 4 living bodies tied through it. I went onto the crossbeam between boats. Xiao attached a second rope to my shoulder harness. Lin Mei attached a third. "You lean," she said. "You do not dive." I like this plan. I leaned headfirst between the hulls while 6 people held my legs. Black water reached my shoulders. Cold stabbed the old side cut. I could see the seal bundle for one instant whenever waves opened. My numb fingers could not fold wet paper. Then pressed Ka's blank tongs into my good hand. A dead hand closed around my wrist. Tang struck it with a padded pole. The grip shifted to his pole. I caught the black seal in the tongs and turned its face inward. The braid released one breath of pressure. Zhao cut the exposed root below it. Lin Mei called the lift. For living victims came out together onto 2 boards. Healers controlled their heads and airways. One did not breathe. Su Lian cleared his mouth, pressed and released his chest, and used a reed to keep the tongue forward. He coughed water before I could offer essence. The 6 hostile corpses went slack. Then the buried braid tore itself free from the riverbed. It rose as a column of hair, roots, corpse cords, and broken restraint seals. The 16 recovered dead bodies still on shore arched toward it. The 6 in the water joined its base. One control source had used all 22 sets of remains. The braid lunged for the 4 rescued mines. Zhao caught high. Soldiers pinned low with hooked spears. Boatmen crossed cables around the middle. Lin Mei ordered the treatment boards carried uphill while Su Lian and Fan ran beside them. I drove Ka's blank tongs into the inverted command seal and twisted until the paper split along its own fold. The braid collapsed across the shallows. Corpse control braid defeated. Dragon essence gained, 70. Current essence rose from 70 to 140. The 4 suspended victims lived. Dian, a kiln worker. Song Ru, a ferry porter. A woman who remembered only the name Nian. A teenage boy called Little Ko by the workers, though Kushan had never met him. Su Lian placed all 4 with Luoshi and Diangu under warm shelters, 6 recovered from river suspension in total. We laid the 22 dead beneath separate cloths. For the first time since dawn, none moved. Under the quiet water, something opened an eye larger than Fan's fairy shield. The river rose without rain. Not by inches. By the height of a man's knee in one long shove. Water climbed both banks, lifted the restrained dead racks, and drove every boat downstream against its lines. The cliff cracked where the dumping chute had entered it. A horned skull pushed through. It was too large to belong to any beast I knew and too incomplete to be a dragon. One antler had rotted to a stump. The jaw ended on the left in exposed bone. Blackweeds grew through an empty eye socket. Behind the skull came 6 lengths of spine wrapped in translucent flesh, then nothing. No full body. No wings. No heart. A fragment of something drowned and harvested until hunger remained after identity had gone. It's when I found my cores. Crimson surged forward in recognition. Azure withdrew so hard my left side went cold. Drowned dragon fragment. Corrupted hostile source. Level unreadable under overlapping residue. Water and rot affinity. Core cavity empty. Active hunger centered in spinal knot. That was all Dragon Eyes gave before pain doubled the skull. It did not name the old dragon. It did not tell me whether memory survived. It did not promise that the visible spinal knot was the only danger. The fragment struck the cliff. The Drowned Gong had been its skull meeting stone around a prison too narrow to release it. Removing the dumping knot in corpse braid had opened the cage. It did not thank us. A jet of black water hit the upper road. Sergeant Lu's shield line took the first edge. 2 soldiers went over. Ma Jun turned the clean water cart sideways, and its wheel stopped one man from sliding into the river. Lin Mei's catch team hauled the second by his shoulder rope. Upstream. Tang shouted. All boats upstream or ashore. Downstream, Fan countered. If we cluster above it, one surge sends every hull through the villages. She was right. The fragment had emerged between the dumping reach and our catches. Boats below it could steer bodies and debris toward shore. Boats above it would become battering rams. Tang changed the order at once. Lower catch holds. Upper boats beach. The fragment swept its skull sideways. Zhao met the horn with her white sword. Gold light burst across the river. She did not stop it. She changed the angle enough that the skull struck empty bank instead of the treatment boards. The impact threw her through a willow. She rose with blood at her mouth and one sleeve hanging loose. Concealed level did not mean unlimited leverage against a dragon fragment supported by a river. The creature opened its broken jaw. Every cup, jar, wet rope, and soaked cloth within 50 paces pulled toward it. Clean water lids rattled on the cart. Black drainage pots rolled from the treatment shelter. Su Lian kicked one into a trench and ordered the rest buried under dry sand. Yi Fin and 4 healers lifted the 6 suspended victims by their boards. Ordinary villagers formed 2 lines and carried them uphill while the fragment dragged water the other way. I ran toward the road bend where a stone retaining wall narrowed the river. Kai! Lin Mei shouted. I'm not attacking. I'm choosing where it attacks. I took the red cloth from the wrapped dumping knots guard pole and held it high. The fragment saw the glow behind my right ribs even without cloth. It turned from the treatment line. That was the useful part. The terrible part was that it moved faster than a ferry in flood. Its skull plowed toward me. I stayed on the towpath until the last stable stone. Wind step could change one angle for 20, but the path ahead was slick with black water and my breath had shortened. A failed step would put me under its jaw. I jumped normally behind the retaining block. The horn smashed through stone. A fragment caught my left thigh and spun me. The old opposing channel tore open under the skin. I hit water on the safe side of the block, shallow enough to stand, and found blackweeds wrapped around both ankles. Wind step was useless in entanglement. Furnace muscle could break them for 15 if I aligned first. The fragment drew breath again. Water rose around my waist. Tang's hook landed beside me. I looped it through the weeds instead of my belt. Shore crews pulled. The weeds tightened. Zhao cut the nearest strand. Lin Mei's knife took another. I climbed out before the second surge. The fragment followed and tore half the retaining wall into the river. We could not defeat it in open current. Every blow borrowed the river's mass. Every splash spread rot downstream. Every boat we lost became danger for 3 settlements. Then pointed to an old oxbow behind the cliff road. Flood cut. Dry in summer. One narrow mouth. Eldershan, reached by runner, sent the same answer from Willowbank. The old dumping reach had once been a river bend before laborers straightened the channel. A buried sluice still connected it. If we opened the upstream gate and blocked the lower mouth, current could carry the fragment into the oxbow. Then we could close both ends and work from banks. Gate is under the fragment, Tang said. Lower mouth is half a mile down, Lin Mei replied. I'll take it. Zhao looked at her injured shoulder. Lin Mei looked back. I can tie rope with one good shoulder. He can barely see. No one argued. She took Fan, Hanmu, Xinli, 2 boats, 12 soldiers, and South Bank timber crews downstream. Tang remained with Xiaoran and the upper boats. Zhao held the road. I stayed because the fragment had chosen my corps as its target. It attacked 3 times while the teams moved. The first attack broke the dumping chute completely. Lu's soldiers evacuated Ku and the clerks before falling timber reached them. The second sent 6 newly exposed corpses from a cave seam. They did not rise. Boatmen caught the remains in cloth and transferred them to the identification rack, bringing the true dead recovered to 28. The third attack struck the clean water cart. Ma Jun cut the mule traces. The animals escaped uphill. The cart rolled toward black water with 12 covered jars aboard. 4 Willowbank workers and 2 tax soldiers caught its rear rope. They saved 9 jars. 3 shattered on stone. Nobody drank from them after river spray crossed the lids. Clean water was a front even while a dragon skull filled the horizon. The fragment lifted itself on 6 spinal joints and came over the bank. Without the river beneath it, the translucent flesh sagged. The spinal knot brightened red-black. It had exposed the place Dragon Eyes had named. Zhao could reach it. So could I. Then the empty eye socket opened sideways and released a cloud of drowned flies. They filled our mouths. Wet cloth stopped the first flies. It did not stop the fragment's tail of bone. The last spinal length swept across the towpath beneath the cloud. Zhao jumped the narrow edge. Sergeant Lu went flat. I saw it late through blue afterimages and took the blow across my fractured ribs. The world folded. I landed in the river beyond the retaining wall. Cold closed over my head. Black water entered my nose. My waist rope snapped tight, then jerked loose. Later, Lin Mei found the cut where drowned flies had eaten halfway through it. At the time, I knew only that the surface had become a moving sheet above me and no line held my body. The fragment dove after its cores. Its skull blocked daylight. The current rolled me under the jaw and into the broken cliff. Roots caught my right arm. Tally cord wound around my throat. One boot wedged between two ribs of ancient bone. I did not have air. That fact overruled every promise of immortality. A core could repair tissue if supplied. It could not put breath in a sealed lung. Regeneration could not lift stone, untie cord, stop pressure, remove rot, or make exhaustion irrelevant. If I drowned with both cores intact, I would remain a body in black water until essence failed or the fragment broke me open. I pulled once against the roots. My damaged shoulder shifted and stopped producing strength. Furnace muscle waited for 15 essence. It required alignment, breath, and a bounded effort. I had no breath to time. My feet were trapped at different heights. Panic tried to spend for me. Will 10 did not create oxygen. It let me stop wasting what remained. I tucked my chin against the tally cord. I found the root around my wrist with numb fingers and could not feel whether I held fiber or my own skin. The fragment's spinal knot glowed beyond the cage of bone. Its pressure drove black water into the old side cut. Rot entered like boiling gravel. My right lung convulsed. I inhaled water. The body's urge to breathe became violence. My back arched. More water came in. One part of my mind observed with the cold horror of a rescuer trapped on the wrong side of the mask. Coughing underwater does not clear an airway. Struggling does not negotiate with depth. Crimson offered strength without requiring a full breath. Not the safe baseline, the old desperate surge. Take it. Tear everything. The influence cost would be mine. The tissue damage would be mine. The alternative was dying tied to a dead dragon's ribs. I spent 15 essence on furnace muscle. Current essence fell from 140 to 125. Crimson influence rose from 17 to 18. Azure remained 18. Difference 0, stable. Heat struck muscles with no alignment to receive it. My right shoulder tore. My back seized. I used the surge for one effort only, both knees against the bone cage, left hand around the root bundle, hips turning toward open water. The root broke. The tally cord did not. I moved 6 inches. My boot came free. The fragment rolled. Pressure drove me deeper into the cliff cavity, and the bone rib caught between my spine and the glowing knot. The technique ended. Nothing in my body worked normally. The lung burned. The right side of my chest would not expand. The fragment's translucent flesh pressed over my face like wet hide. Both cores were still intact. That only meant I could feel the next part. Above, blurred through black water, a net of search ropes crossed. Tang's boats had thrown weighted lines, Chow had anchored ferry cable, and loose soldiers hauled from shore. They could not see me, they searched assigned sectors. A hook struck my calf and tore free. Another caught the bone cage. The fragment jerked toward shore. The cord at my throat tightened. Rescue of the thing trapping me could kill me faster. I found the black paper tally against my neck. Ember Fist cost 5. Heat in water would disperse. Heat against paper pressed directly to skin could burn my throat. My left hand held the cord away by less than a finger width. Crimson said, burn the neck. It will grow again. I had no regrowth technique. Mending breath could not rebuild a throat. Immortality might repair it later if I survived with essence and connection. Might was not an airway plan. The hook on the bone cage shifted. A smaller line brushed my face. 3 knots in quick sequence. Lin Mei's correction cadence. The line was a messenger cord. She had returned from the lower mouth and sent thin search ropes between the heavy catches. I closed my fist around it and pulled twice, paused, pulled once, trapped, alive. The cord answered with one hard draw. People knew where I was. That did not free me. The fragment thrust its skull downstream. Heavy lines groaned. The messenger cord slid across my palm. I wrapped it around my wrist, accepting the cut. Something above altered the pull. The bone cage rotated instead of rising. Zhao's sword followed the new angle and severed the tally cord at the place my hand held it away. My throat opened. Water remained in it. The messenger line pulled my shoulders through the gap while Chow's hook levered bone outward and Tang's line hauled my belt. Lin Mei called a single rhythm so the ropes did not pull me apart. I came out of the fragment. It caught my left foot in its jaw. The broken teeth closed through the boot. I kicked with the other heel. Nothing. The fragment dragged against every line. My vision narrowed to red and black. Zhao cut the jaw hinge. The skull released me. The search crews pulled me toward light, but weeds wrapped my waist again. A boatman named Pei Shan entered from the lower boat on a shoulder line. He did not dive freely. Ben held his line, Han Mu held hers, and 3 soldiers held the stern. Pei reached me with a pruning hook, cut 2 weed loops, and ran out of breath. He tried to push me upward before himself. I caught his harness and refused. A rescuer becoming a second victim was not noble. It was 2 bodies needing the same rope. The boat crew hauled us together. My face broke the surface. Air did not enter. Su Lian and Yi Fen received me on a board between boats. They turned me before lifting, head lower than chest. Water poured from my mouth. The right lung gave nothing but a bubbling whistle. Pei Shan coughed beside me under Fun's hand. Someone pressed my back. Someone held my jaw. A reed kept my tongue forward. I wanted to activate mending breath. Su Lian slapped my wrist away. Active rot, she said. Do not seal it in. The black water I coughed contained threads of my own lung. On shore, the fragment struck the lower sluice gate. Lin Mei's teams had opened the Oxbow. Current turned sideways, carrying the creature toward the trap. I was alive to see it happen because boats, ropes, hooks, poles, timing, and a man named Pei Shan had reached me. Both cores had done nothing about air. Then my right lung stopped moving at all. The healers cut my coat away on dry ground. Su Lian listened with her ear against my back. Yi Fen held a thin reed near my mouth and watched which way the fiber moved. Zhao placed 2 fingers over the right ribs, sensing without pouring essence into me. Every breath came through the left side and a wet cavity near the center. Part of the lower right lung is dead, Su Lian said. Crimson answered before I did. Replace it. No technique opened. I was still level 5. My current essence was 125, enough for many bad decisions and not yet integrated into the next level. The system would not convert danger into advancement automatically. Yi Fen showed me what I had coughed into the bowl. Gray-red tissue lay among black root threads. The threads still twitched toward river spray on the bank. Mending breath would close bleeding around what remains, I said. And trap those inside, Su Lian replied. They move when wet corruption is near. We removed the source first. This was not a wound to seal while running. It was a contaminated airway, destroyed tissue, fluid, blood loss, and exhaustion in a man whose chest already carried a fracture. Ordinary surgery here meant boiled knives, clean cloth, positioning, hands, and terrible limits. No one pretended the word ordinary meant safe. Zhao established a dry circle uphill from spray. Soldiers raised blank sailcloth as windscreens. Fen brought the cleanest grain table from the water station and scrubbed it with boiled spring water. Ma Jun's saved jars supplied washing. The water ration board recorded every jar. My need did not erase the needs of 3 villages. I could not lie flat. They placed me on my left side with the damaged chest raised, hips and shoulder held by blankets. Tang fixed a grip rope above the table. Lin Mei sat where I could see her through the blue doubling. The fragment roared from the Oxbow. Teams were still fighting the river while my world narrowed to a reed tube. Tang and Fen left after delivering me. Zhao stayed only long enough to assess the spiritual rot. Then she assigned Sergeant Liu to the medical perimeter and returned to help close the Oxbow's upper gate. Lin Mei remained because Su Lian needed someone who knew my voice and because downstream teams already had captains. Su Lian controlled the airway. Yi Fen cut. They gave me a leather bite roll and instructed me to breathe only when Su Lian tapped my sternum. Cough when she lifted 2 fingers. Hold when she closed her fist. A narrow reed at the mouth helped blood and fluid drain. It did not breathe for me. Another tube entered the wound path between ribs only after Zhao had marked where active rot showed closest to the surface. Pain made the system text shake. I spent 5 essence on nothing. I wanted to. I did not. Mending breath could stabilize bleeding, but Azure Cold might make the brittle rot break deeper before removal. Furnace muscle would tear the chest. Ember would cook living lung. Smoke veil had no place near an airway. Thread reading could only examine active visible links. The rot threads were inside tissue and the river source was half a mile away behind land. Tools have jobs. Refusing the wrong tool is also a job. Yi Fen followed black threads with wooden tongs into gray tissue that did not bleed when cut. Su Lian counted my breaths. My body tried to inhale against instruction. Lin Mei gripped my neck without blocking my view. Kai. Crimson pushed heat into my right eye. Let me rebuild while they cut. Not while the source is in me, I said. Su Lian heard the roughness in the voice. Whose choice? Mine. Yifan removed the dead lower section. Su Lian controlled fresh bleeding, tested a shallow breath, and positioned the living margin against the chest wall so it would not twist. A last thread remained. It had entered the coughed-out tissue, looped through the wound, and embedded near the diaphragm. Pulling it made my whole body arch. Cutting it would leave active rot inside. Yifan followed with the tongs while Su Lian controlled each breath. Lin Mei held the lamp low. Sergeant Liu held the windscreen while the fragment struck the Oxbow bank hard enough to shake dust from it. The thread came free with black core glass on its end. Yifan dropped it into a bronze cup and concealed it. The twitching stopped. Source removed from the wound, Su Lian said. Not from the river. From you. She washed the path with boiled protected water. No black movement answered. Zhao returned between gate orders and examined the exposed margin. Her detection charm stayed pale above the wound and darkened only when held over the sealed cup. The active rot was gone. Part of my right lung was also gone. Blood already lost remained lost. My left lung labored against exhaustion and pressure injury. Regeneration had not appeared simply because tissue was missing. Post-level 5 integration available. Requirement: 60 stabilized essence deposited after food, genuine rest, and host control. Deposit removes essence from usable reserve. Leveling grants no healing. Current essence, 125. I laughed once and regretted it. Food? Su Lian held up a spoon of broth. One at a time. If you choke, no level. I took 6 spoons over half an hour. Wafan added soft millet when the broth stayed down. They let me sleep in short stretches on my left side while Yifan watched the drain and Su Lian watched my breath. For the first time since the drowned gong sounded, I released the struggle long enough to dream. Outside, Fan's boats lured the fragment into the Oxbow. South Bank blocked the lower mouth, Tang stretched catch cables, and Zhao narrowed the upstream sluice. Elder Shin maintained water distribution while Lin Xiao rotated mule teams. 28 dead remained restrained, the original 22, including the 6 that had attacked in the water, and the 6 exposed when the cliff broke. 6 river victims and 7 cave workers remained alive under treatment. After 2 hours, my pulse slowed. I had kept food down. The fragment remained contained in the Oxbow while train teams held every gate. Crimson had offered power repeatedly. I had refused. I named the transaction aloud through the reed. 60 stabilized essence, I said. It will not heal the lung. Lin Mei watched my eyes. Su Lian held the airway. Yifan held the living lung margin in its surgical position. I deposited 60 essence. Current essence fell from 125 to 65. Level gained. Shen Kai, level 6. Body increased automatically from 9 to 10. Choose one bonus increase, spirit or perception. Perception had just shown its cost in blood. Spirit increased technique depth and resistance against possession and soul pressure. The fragment was not only a large body. Both dragons had recoiled from what remained in it. Spirit. Spirit increased from 5 to 6. Current stats, body 10. Speed 8. Spirit 6. Perception 7. Will 10. No healing occurred. The missing lung section remained missing. Air still bubbled at the wound. The fractured rib, torn shoulder, thigh channel, forearm damage, old cuts and tears, burned palms, blood loss, eye injury, and all other carried wounds remained. A crimson technique opened only because fresh aligned tissue had been exposed, the active source removed, and host control maintained. Crimson regrowth. Cost, 50 essence. Influence change, crimson +4. Effect, reattach or rebuild one fresh aligned tissue section over several minutes after the damaging source is removed. Requires a living connection, airway control when relevant, host control, and ordinary surgical positioning. Dead or stale flesh lay beyond it, as did a severed head, either dragon core, blood already lost, and any poison or rot still active. Fever, extreme hunger, essence crash, and crimson pressure would follow. The lung edge leaked air beneath Yifan's fingers. Crimson whispered in my own roughening voice. Now ask me nicely. Asking is not the problem, I told Crimson. Terms are. The red interface remained. It did not bargain away a single limit. Su Lian read my face, not the text only I could see. Explain before you spend. 50 essence and 4 points toward Crimson, I said. One fresh section, grown over minutes from the living edge you hold. If the rot returns or I stop choosing, you stop me. Yifan did not look impressed. Can it rebuild the lower section from the living edge I am holding? The panel says yes. Can it tell us whether my position is correct? No. Then my hands remain more important than your panel for the next minute. She adjusted the folded pads beneath the right chest. Air bubbled less. Su Lian changed the reed angle so drainage left my mouth rather than entering the good lung. Lin Mei boiled a fresh length of cloth and laid it where Yifan could reach without releasing the tissue margin. The chest frame Tang had rigged above the table held my shoulder too far back. The angle widened the wound whenever I coughed. Sergeant Lu loosened the iron clasp, but River Grit had jammed the pin. Cutting the rope would drop my right side and twist the fresh margin. Eat the clasp, Yifan said. Away from him. They transferred load to 2 wooden poles. Lu removed the clasp and held it in long tongs over a clay tile. Only after the metal stood 3 paces from skin, boiled cloth, and spilled blood did I use the smallest heat my technique allowed. I paid 5 essence and activated Ember Fist. Current essence fell from 65 to 60. Crimson influence rose from 18 to 19. Azure remained 18. Difference 1 in Crimson's favor, stable. One brief pulse softened the bent pin. Lu hammered it straight with the butt of a knife and returned it after water cooled the metal. The frame settled at Yifan's chosen angle. Yifan tested the margin once more. Su Lian tapped the breathing rhythm against my sternum. Sergeant Lu locked both hands around the corrected frame. I activated Crimson Regrowth. 50 essence left my cores. Current essence fell from 60 to 10. Crimson influence rose by 4, from 19 to 23. Azure remained 18. Difference 5. Imbalance warning, emotional distortion, visible eye change, technique surge risk. Speech and limb suppression begin only at difference 7. Heat did not close the wound. It entered the fresh edge Yifan held and began building outward one wet fiber at a time. The pain was slower than fire. Fire passes. This stayed. New tissue pulled shape from the living margin while Su Lian timed my breathing around it. When I inhaled too deeply, the growing section stretched thin. When I coughed without warning, it tore at its first attachment. Yifan pressed it back into alignment. Lin Mei counted breaths. Sergeant Lu held the frame. Wolf and spoon salted broth between cycles because hunger arrived before the tissue reached the size of my thumb. Minutes became a country with no road through it. Crimson walked beside me there. You see? The dragon said through my own inner voice. Flesh obeys. Villages obey when they understand who keeps their children drinking. Soldiers obey strength. Let the red eye open. Give me one sentence. My right eye opened by itself. The shelter changed color. Every face looked too slow. Su Lian's hand on the reed felt like interference. Yifan's instructions sounded like insolence. The fragment struck the Oxbow bank, and I wanted to rise from the table, tear it apart, then make every frightened person kneel so no one could ever delay me again. My mouth moved. Gat. Lin Mei put 2 fingers against my lips. No. Heat flashed up my right arm. For 1 second I imagined closing that hand around her wrist. The thought was not an order from nowhere. It was anger given appetite and strength. That made it more dangerous, not less. Kai, she said. Not vessel. Not dragon. You asked me to call your name. Su Lian did not stop the airway work to comfort me. Breathe on my tap. Yifan kept both hands on the fresh section. If you sit up, it tears. I will not start again to flatter your temper. Sergeant Lu leaned his weight against the chest frame. My orders are to preserve your person. At present, your person is behaving foolishly. Wolfen pushed another spoon of broth between my teeth. Salt. Millet. A chipped wooden spoon. Lin Mei's burned rope fingers. Lu's tax issue sleeve. Yifan's wrist shaking from holding one position too long. Su Lian counting the breath I could not manage alone. Crimson offered a throne. They gave me ordinary care. I chose the room I was actually in. My name is Chen Kai, I said when Su Lian allowed speech. I am not giving you my voice. The right eye stayed red. The pressure did not vanish, and my right eye remained red. What changed was my response. I stopped reaching for the thought that anger made me clearer than everyone else. The tissue continued growing. After 4 minutes, air moved through the rebuilt section in a shallow channel. After 7, the bubbling at the wound slowed. After 11, Yifan could release one finger without the fresh margin folding. She positioned the outer layer and stitched ordinary tissue around it with boiled thread. Crimson regrowth did not tie knots for her. At 14 minutes, the red interface dimmed. One fresh aligned tissue section rebuilt, lower right lung segment. The new section was raw, small, and weak. My first deeper breath ended in a cough that spotted Yifen's fresh dressing red. Fever hit before Yifen finished the dressing. My teeth knocked together while heat steamed from my skin. Hunger cramped hard enough to bend my knees. Current Essence 10 felt like standing inside an empty station after every water tank had run dry. Crimson's voice remained close, amused and angry. Su Lian tied my right wrist loosely to the table, with my consent, because fever spasms could tear the new section. Lin Mei tied the left and left enough slack for me to signal. Wofen fed me until swallowing became unsafe, then stopped despite my demand for more. You said hunger would come, she told me. You did not say choking became useful. Outside, horns marked the Oxbow gates holding. A runner entered with mud to his chest. The fragment is contained. It has begun digging through the lower bank towards South Bank's marsh channel. I tried to rise. For ordinary people kept me down. Zhao appeared behind the runner, pale from her own injuries. You will not solve that front from a surgical table. Then tell me who will. We will. For the next 6 hours, I was a patient on a hill, answering runners between fever chills. Tang Bo controlled the upstream gate. Wen controlled the lower boats. Lin Mei and Shen Li held the marshbank crews. Captain Deng rotated soldiers through the timber walls. Zhao moved where the fragment's spiritual pressure threatened to break one point. Elder Shen managed water and evacuation from Willowbank. Lin Xiao did the same at South Bank. Xiao Ren and Han Mu commanded catch lines across the Oxbow mouth. The Oxbow was shaped like a bent arm, narrow at both ends and broad under the old cliff. Its banks had grown willow and reed for years. Once we admitted water, the dry center became shallow mud around a deeper channel. The drowned fragment could swim in the channel but could not build full river speed. When it climbed the banks, its incomplete body sagged. It attacked the lower wall first. South Bank crews had built that wall from green kiln timbers laid crosswise behind stone carts. The fragment drove its horn beneath the lowest beam and lifted. Lin Mei did not tell everyone to push harder. She ordered the cart pins pulled. 2 carts rolled sideways into prepared pits, dropping their stone load onto the beam from above. The horn became trapped under its own leverage. Zhao struck the exposed spinal knot. Her white sword cut translucent flesh and scored bone. Black pressure burst outward. 3 soldiers forgot where they stood and walked toward the water until Deng called their names. He pulled one back by hand. Shinli and charcoal workers caught the other 2 with pole loops. The fragment withdrew before Zhao could strike twice. Its flesh repaired around the score by drinking black water from the Oxbow. The remaining pollution feeds it, Zhao reported. Closing the source did not clean what had already spread. Tang opened the upper gate by one handspan. Clean upstream river water entered the Oxbow. Wen opened a controlled spill into a lined waste trench below, not into South Bank's marsh. The trench ended in 3 abandoned charcoal pits packed with clay and blank ash, holding the contaminated water while crews removed solid residue. At the upstream gate, a 3-point ferry hitch divided the fragment's roll between willow anchors. One tore free, soldiers drove in a deadman beam. A slipping cable took another fingertip from Tang. Wen reassigned him from gripping rope to calling load. The fragment's third attack was not physical. It rang the Drowned Gong from inside its skull. The sound traveled through every jar containing river water. Sealed drainage pots cracked. The 6 suspended victims screamed. The 7 cave workers curled around their old ring wounds. All 28 recovered dead. 22 from the racks and water, 6 from the broken cliff lifted their heads beneath their cloths. The corpse braid was defeated. No source commanded them to attack. Residual pressure still moved dead tissue when the fragment called. Su Lian ordered the body's elbows and knees individually restrained again, not piled or burned. Families helped only if they chose. Su moved identity tags to the outer cloth before tightening any line. The living victims received padded belts and people at both sides. No one mistook their spasms for hostility. At the water stations, approved clean jars did not answer the gong. 3 river sample jars did. Zhao's detection charms darkened over all 3. The distinction gave healers a test for gross residue, but not permission to reopen channels. A pale charm could miss hidden contamination. We would require time, repeated samples, living indicators, and no fragment before river use resumed. Fever made me hear crimson in every gong note. You need only command them harder. I gripped the loose wrist rope and named what I saw aloud. Wufen is measuring broth. Sergeant Liu is changing the windcloth. Tao is carrying a horn message. Lin Mei is not here because she is holding the lower bank. Su Lian understood the exercise. And who are you? Chen Kai. Where? On a table. Unfortunately. Dry humor sounded thin through a damaged lung, but it was mine. Near dusk, the fragment found the buried marsh channel. The old straightening works had left a clay pipe beneath the lower bank. Black water began seeping toward South Bank's reed beds. Lin Xiao noticed before any detection art because frogs left the first puddle. She shut the nearest marsh gate, sent children and livestock uphill, and packed the channel from the dry side with clay. Helan measured seepage against marks on a kiln tile. When the rate slowed but did not stop, charcoal crews dug a cross-trench and exposed the pipe. It was wide enough for the fragment's jaw. They could not close it while the creature guarded the inner mouth. The final containment plan formed through runner reports. Finn proposed drawing the fragment to the surface by showing it a dragon aspect target. Zhao refused to use my body. Zhao could make her sword shine with containment pressure, but the fragment had learned her blade. Kushan offered the seal dumping knot. Everyone refused to risk reopening the first source. Luosher, from her treatment board, gave another answer. The wagons used a paired core bell, she said. Empty shell. They rang it when baskets jammed. The thing below struck back. Ko remembered a bronze bell compartment in Wei's relay archive inventory, confiscated from a county disposal crew. The archive wagon remained at Willowbank under guard. Deng sent 4 soldiers and Su for it. They returned after dark with a bronze shell the size of a helmet, split down one side and empty inside. No corruption showed while it remained still. When Zhao struck it with the pommel of her sword, the fragment's eye surfaced in the oxbow. The bell could draw it. That did not defeat it. We needed to remove the spinal knot from water long enough to break the corrupted source without spilling its residue downstream. Tang designed a lifting cradle from 3 ferry cables. Finn chose the boat angles. Lin Mei marked the shallow shelf where the fragment's skull would ground. Xiao and Han Mu assigned shore poles. Deng placed shield teams around anchors. South Bank dug the waist trench deeper. Zhao would cut only after the cradle carried the knot's weight. I asked for a roll. Su Lian said no. I asked whether I could be moved to the upper observation cart without tearing the lung. Yifan examined the fresh section, listened to 3 breaths, and said, if 6 people carry the board level, if you remain on your left side, if you do not use a technique, and if you accept that I return you here at the first airway leak. Those were terms, not permission to become healthy. 6 people moved me at dawn. The fever came with us. So did broth, airway reeds, dressings, and the loose consent rope. Current essence remained 10. The meter still showed Azure 18 against Crimson 23, a difference of 5. My right eye no longer glowed constantly, but anger still arrived too quickly and sounded reasonable. Below, more than 100 people stood at ropes, gates, boats, poles, treatment lanes, corpse racks, clean water carts, and evacuation posts. The lines were already taut. The bronze shell rang once. The drowned fragment struck from beneath the oxbow shelf. Mud rose higher than the boats. Fun's lead ferry climbed the wave, bow almost vertical. She did not turn away. 2 boatmen paid out the bell line while a third cut free a reed mat that threatened the rudder. Tang's cradle cables lay open under the surface, 1 ahead of the skull and 2 behind the spinal knot. Zhao rang the shell again from the shallow shelf. The fragment came for her. Its broken jaw crossed the first cable. Fun released the bell line. Zhao stepped behind a stone cart. The skull grounded where Lin Mei had marked, but the incomplete spine remained in deep water. Rear left. Tang called. Xiao Ren's teams hauled. 1 cable rose behind the 4th joint. The fragment rolled and shed it. Reset. No chase. Boat hooks guided the loose cable back rather than men reaching into water. Shen Li's boat caught the ice splice. Han Mu's shoreline took weight. On the second lift, the cable seated behind the 5th joint. The fragment bit through the front cradle rope. Fun had expected it. The rope contained a sacrificial hemp center around a thin iron ferry chain. Teeth closed on hemp. The chain held long enough for Deng's shield crews to pull the skull another pace on the mud. Black water sprayed the observation cart. Sergeant Liu raised a blank shield over me. Yifan checked the dressing before looking at the fight. River spray darkened the shield's lower edge. The clean cloth beneath stayed dry. The fragment opened its side socket. Drowned flies poured out again. Wolfen's mill workers turned winnowing screens into fans. South Bank crews lit damp straw in clay braziers upwind, making ordinary smoke. Not smoke veil. The flies avoided the thickest lanes and collected against wet nets stretched by Willowbank roof teams. Soldiers rolled the nets inward and buried them in lidded ash pits. The fragment rang its skull. At the corpse racks, 28 dead bodies strained. Restraint teams held. At the shelters, 13 living victims convulsed. Healers held airways and patted limbs. At all 3 villages, clean water teams checked lids. No gate opened because a gong sounded. The cradle's third cable slid beneath the spinal knot. Zhao could see the target. So could I from the hill, a red-black mass between 2 vertebrae, exposed whenever translucent flesh sagged away from water. Thread reading could not improve the view. The knot was not controlling a visible target by an open link in that instant. Dragon eyes had already identified its visible center. Spending my last 10 would not purchase a 15 essence refinement anyway. Lift. Fun called. More than 40 people hauled 3 cables. The spinal knot came out of water. The fragments screamed in 2 voices. One sounded like an animal in pain. The other formed a broken word inside both cores. Rain. For a heartbeat I saw not an enemy but a memory, a dragon falling into a river while iron wagons waited on the bank, its body carved before death had finished. Azure grieved with cold distance. Crimson raged and wanted every human present punished for what other humans had done. The fragment had suffered. It was also trying to tear open a channel that would carry rot into homes. Mercy did not require letting it continue. Zhao struck the first joint beside the knot. Her sword entered halfway and stopped against opposing residue. The fragment whipped its skull. The front chain tore free of one anchor. Dang's soldiers slid through mud, shields locked around the line. Tang Bo wrapped the loose load around his own waist. Then hit him with a pole. Anchor, not body. He understood before pride killed him. Xiao drove a timber through the loop. 6 boatmen weighted it. The line held on wood and earth instead of one man's ribs. Zhao struck again. The spinal knot cracked but did not separate. Black pressure entered her sword and climbed toward her hand. She released the hilt. Gold light vanished. The white blade remained wedged in bone. The fragment drove forward. The observation card rolled despite its chocks. Lu and Yifan held my board. I caught the side with my good hand. Crimson filled my mouth with a command to stand. Take the knot. Eat it. Become whole. My right eye burned red. Lin Mei was on the lower shelf, both hands around a cable guide. She looked up once and saw the eye. Kai. The name reached farther than the fragment's memory. I'm here, I said. I stayed on the board and used the strength I had where I lay. The observation cart's rear cable ran through a brake post beside me. Its wooden pin had lifted under the surge. If it came free, the third cradle line would release and drop the spinal knot back into water. I put my heel against the pin and pressed. No technique. No essence. My thigh shook around the old channel. Yifan braced my hip so the fresh lung did not twist. Sergeant Liu added his boot beside mine. Wolfen drove a wedge beneath the pin. The brake held. If my heel slipped, the third cradle line would drop the knot back into feeding water. Liu and I held while Wolfen drove the wedge home. Fen ordered the boats outward. Tang ordered shore teams back. Lin Mei released the guide and measured lengths, rolling the fragment's spine sideways across the mud shelf. The cracked knot rotated upward around Zhao's embedded sword. Kushan ran from cover with the empty bronze bell. He placed the split shell over the knot like a cup. Black discharge struck the bronze and turned inward, following the same lure that had drawn the fragment. Su and Mo Lan pulled blank seal cloth around the shell. Dang's soldiers drove 2 iron grain measures against either side. Zhao reached her sword again with both hands. Now, she said. Every cradle team hauled. She cut through the cracked joint. The spinal knot came free inside the empty bell. The fragment's skull struck the shelf once. Its eye looked toward the sky. The word inside my cores changed. Enough. Then the translucent flesh lost shape. 6 vertebrae settled into mud. The skull remained a skull. Black water drained from the empty socket into the lined containment trench. Drowned dragon fragment defeated. Dragon essence gained, 120. Current essence rose from 10 to 130. Zhao knelt beside the skull and touched 2 fingers to the clean bone above its eye. Whatever name you had, she said, the harvesting ends here. Then Tang Bo ordered the cables eased before they crushed 3 boatmen. Fen ordered the waste trench closed. Su Lian's runners reported all 13 victims still alive, and Elder Shen's water horn sounded from Willowbank. Work resumed around the dead dragon. The river was still black. A monster can die in one morning. Water safety takes repetition. We kept every river intake closed. The clean supply routes became routine. Willowbank's south spring filled covered jars. Reed Ferry's deep well ran on 2 rope shifts, 1 drawing and 1 cleaning. South Bank's hillside seep fed its clay tanks while mule carts carried the difference. Eldershan's board tracked cracked jars, sick house use, livestock ponds, and labor shifts. Guild heads adjusted measures in public each evening. No village ran out. They came close at South Bank on the second afternoon, when 1 mule through a shoe in a clay tank developed a leak. Lin Xiao redirected charcoal wagons to carry jars. Helan found the leak by the dark line under a tank and packed it with clean clay from above the seep. Willowbank reduced non-cooking use for 1 shift and sent 8 extra jars. The solution cost sleep and work, not a hidden miracle. At the Oxbow, Zhao sealed the spinal knot inside the bronze bell, then inside 2 grain measures with dry clay between. It went to the stone-lined charcoal pit beside the wrap dumping knot, each source in a separate marked compartment. Kashan and Mo Lan recorded the seals. Captain Deng assigned guards from different squads and village witnesses from different settlements. No one opened either source for study. The corpse control braid was divided only where it had already broken. Zhao placed the reversed restraint seal in its own dry evidence jar. Hair, root fiber, and tally cords remained under wet cloth until healers confirmed no living tissue had been tangled among them. Then South Bank burned the corrupted fiber in a closed kiln whose ash pit had no water outlet. The smoke passed through clay baffles. The ash stayed sealed for later contained burial. The 28 true corpses required slower care. 14 were identified by clothing, tally cords, scars, or survivor testimony. Families claimed 8. 6 belonged to distant households. 14 remained unidentified. Su and Mo Lan copied every description. Tang Bo marked where each body entered the catch. Su Lian recorded damage before and after death. None moved after the spinal knot came out. Families chose rites according to their households. The unclaimed dead rested in raised, roofed shelters above flood level while notices traveled. No body returned to the river. No corpse was burned merely because it had moved under corruption. The 13 living victims separated into 2 medical groups. Luoshi, Biangu, Dian, Songru, Nian, and Little Ku had come from water suspension. Their lungs, skin, and nerves carried cold and repeated drowning. Su Lian kept them at Willowbank and Reed Ferry's dry high shelter, according to family ties and healer capacity. None remained in iron rings. Spasms received padded support, not chains. Rinyu, Jiamin, Wude, Panrui, and the 3 unnamed cave workers suffered starvation, ring punctures, and cold damage without full immersion. Yifan kept all 7 on South Bank's warm kiln floor until travel became safe. 1 unnamed woman remembered Shu on the 3rd day. The record changed from work number 6 to Shu, with space left for a family name she did not yet know. Zhao took statements only when healers permitted. Su recorded uncertainty as uncertainty. No one had to prove usefulness to receive food. Those with defensible memories described 16 disposal wagons, night dumping, a county foreman named Hu, and guards wearing relay office cords. Luoshi explained that workers who collapsed were fitted with suspension rings so their labor debt did not end in death. The rings had kept 6 alive in a condition that repeatedly drowned them. The 7 in the cave had been next. We removed every basket from the cliff yard, collected corglass from mud with flour and wet clay, dismantled the chute, and roofed the stained soil against rain. Zhao's detection teams followed visible residue. Workers who had lived there pointed to hidden pits. 1 pit held empty lime boxes. Another held 6 inert collar beads. They were contaminated evidence and received separate clay containment. Tang Bo rebuilt the river catch below Reach 9. For 3 days, it caught dead fish, black weed, corglass grit, and 2 more human bodies. Both were true corpses, bringing the recovered dead to 30. Neither moved. Their tally cords matched the hidden yard. They joined the identification shelter. The volume of black material declined with each controlled flush. We did not trust color alone. Every morning, teams collected jars above Reach 9, at the cleared source, at Reed Ferry, at Willowbank's intake, and below South Bank. The jars sat in numbered rows under the same light. Zhao tested for gross spiritual residue. Healers watched river snails and small fish in separate sample bowls. Millers checked smell and sediment. Boatmen watched whether natural insects returned to the surface. No person drank test water. On the first day, downstream charms blackened and fish rolled. On the second, a clear-looking Willowbank sample killed a fish before sunset. The third still failed at South Bank. On the fourth, roof crews diverted rain from the dumping yard into lined pits, but faint residue at Reed Ferry kept every intake closed. My fever broke that night. The right eye still flashed when anger rose. I said my name when I noticed, Lin Mei said it when I did not. Su Lian fed me, changed the drain, and refused any technique that might hide a symptom. The fresh lung section stayed attached but weak. A full sentence took 2 breaths. I spent no essence during the water closure. On the 5th morning, all 5 river samples held fish and snails through daylight. Zhao's charm stayed pale. No black grit settled. Insects returned near the old chute. That was encouraging, not a reopening order. We repeated the full test on the 6th morning with fresh jars, fresh animals, different collectors, and positions chosen by each village's waterkeeper. All remained normal through a day and night. The 3 village councils met at Willowbank's sealed intake. Eldershan, Tangbo, Lin Xiao, healers, boat crews, Zhao, and Deng reviewed the results. They reopened river water in stages, first livestock at one guarded bank, then washing tools, then irrigation into an empty settling field. Drinking and cooking remained on protected sources for 2 additional days. No illness or spiritual sign appeared in the test animals, field insects, or workers who handled water with covered skin. On the 8th morning, each village opened 1 drinking point under local control. Water was boiled for ordinary disease safety, though boiling was never claimed to remove dragon corruption. The river had become usable because the sources were removed, contaminated solids caught, reaches flushed, repeated tests passed, and staged exposure showed no return. The wells and springs stayed active as permanent backup. Water became boring again. That was the best result we had achieved all week. I walked to the river's shelter on the 9th day with a pole in my left hand and Su Lian insulting my pace. The rebuilt lung section drew air. It did not enjoy it. Every 6th breath caught near the stitched margin. The fractured rib remained a separate pain. My right shoulder stayed bound below chest height. Fever had eaten weight from my face. Hunger followed every meal as if Crimson expected a banquet for 1 piece of flesh. At the high shelter, the 6 water suspension survivors sat or lay in sunlight. Luoshir had remembered the pattern of every rope in the hidden cave. She wanted to return to Reed Ferry when she could walk. Tangbo offered her a place with the ferry crews. She said she would decide after seeing whether the river made her afraid. He accepted that answer. Diangu asked Lin Xiao whether his household at South Bank had survived. His sister arrived before sunset and struck him across the shoulder, then held him for a long time. Su Lian entered family transfer only after Bien said he wanted it. He remained under daily lung checks. Dian's kiln had collapsed in his absence. South Bank's guild offered work rebuilding water tanks. Songru had no surviving household nearby and chose Reed Ferry's high shelter for continued care. Nian still lacked a family name. She remembered a plum tree and a red gate somewhere east. Zhao sent the description with protected witness notices, not a custody order. Little Ku turned out to be 15 and named Ku Yuan. The nickname had come from his height, not the seal assistant. His mother had died at the sorting yard. Her body was among the identified dead. He chose to view her under Su Lian's supervision. No one forced him to do it for the record. The 7 cave survivors improved more slowly. Ren Yu could stand with parallel poles. Jiamin's fingers had curled around imaginary basket reeds for months. Wofan found soft straw and let her hands relearn opening. Wu Di and Pan Rui remembered the wagon guards. Shu remembered her family name, Liang, and a village beyond the eastern ford. The last 2 asked to keep their work numbers private until memory returned. Su sealed those numbers in the medical copy rather than reading them at public meetings. All 13 were living victims. None was charged. None remained in labor debt. Zhao suspended every sorting yard contract and ring attestation as evidence of coercive spiritual practice. Final review belonged to a lawful examiner, but immediate freedom from the devices did not wait for Minister Sima's permission. The 30 dead received dispositions too. 18 were identified by the 9th day. 10 had families able to claim them. 8 came from distant places, their names and descriptions traveled with guild couriers and Deng's riders. 12 remained unknown. The compact set aside a dry burial field above flood marks, with separate markers families could reopen later. Eldershan forbade any inscription calling them debtors. They were people before an office numbered them, he said. The 6 corpse weapons that had torn their own restraints were not separated from the other dead as guilty. Their post-mortem damage was recorded. Their bodies received the same care. Pei Shan visited with a cough and rope burns under both arms. I thanked him for entering on the rescue line. You held my harness too, he said. I was confused by lack of air. You are often confused near water. Ben laughed from the doorway. He learned slowly. The rescue equipment changed because of what had failed. Lin Mei replaced single waist ropes with shoulder and waist harnesses. Search cords carried not signals. Every boat assigned one caller, one airway board, and one person forbidden to enter water because someone had to remain able to haul. Catch poles had padded forks. Corpse cloth and living blankets stayed on different racks. Tang Bo added a rule from his injured hand: no person becomes an anchor. Loads go to posts, trees, carts, or distributed teams. The villages approved those changes in their own meetings. Zhao reviewed my regrowth use as part of parole. She watched the red flicker cross my eye, then asked what I had almost set on the table. An order, I told her. Crimson made surrendering to it feel like leadership. Lin Mei's voice in the other's hands gave me something real to choose instead. Record the urge when it returns, Zhao said. Not just the techniques. My state remained level 6, Essence 130, Azure 18 against Crimson 23. Core ledger stayed locked. At sunset, Kuyuan asked whether the dragon fragment had been alive. I looked toward the skull under Zhao's guard. Clean bone showed where black flesh had drained away. Something in it remembered wanting rain, I said. Something in it also tried to send rot into your home. I don't know how much of the first thing remained. Did it hurt? Yes. Did stopping it help? Yes. Both answers had to fit in the same world. By the 10th morning, children carried well jars past a river that ran clear. Families crossed toward the dry burial field, and the treatment shelters stood open to the sun. Reed Ferry lost wet grain and days of boat work. South Bank spent kiln timber and charcoal pits on containment. Willowbank's spring road became mud under constant carts. Boatmen carried rope burns. Soldiers had sprains and black water rashes. Healers slept in pieces. Families received bodies instead of people. Applause made the red eye flash. I sat through it with one hand over the stitched ribs and let Su Lian shorten my breath before pain did. On the 10th morning, the compact held a river assembly at Reed Ferry. Eldershan sat because his knee had swollen from waterboard work. Tang Bo's hand remained bandaged. When stood beside the new rescue rack. Lin Xiao carried South Bank's tank reports. Wuofun brought well measures. Su Lian and Yifun brought victim status with consent for every name read aloud. Captain Deng reported his soldiers and the guarded evidence. Zhao stated the limits of her authority. The assembly adopted 3 permanent measures. First, no official disposal wagon could use a village road without a destination receipt copied to all 3 settlements. Loads described as roadstone could be inspected by guild measures when spiritual contamination was suspected. Inspectors needed witnesses from the affected place. Second, river warnings triggered clean water distribution, not only closure. Each settlement maintained a protected backup source, covered jars, sample vessels, and a route that did not depend on the threatened waterway. Third, rescue harnesses, corpse cloths, airway boards, and catch lines remained stocked separately. The rule used blunt words: a body that moves may still be dead, a body that looks drowned may still contain a living person. Healers decide the lane when possible. Crews control the danger without assuming guilt. Lin Mei added a 4th proposal. Any technique used inside a rescue line had to be named with cost and physical risk if time allowed. A dragon vessel did not get to make other people hold dangerous positions without telling them what power might do. The delegates approved it. I did not vote. The compact had not become mine because my course had attracted the fragment. After the meeting, Zhao led me to the raised containment field. The fragment's skull lay beneath a roof of plain timber. Without black flesh, it looked older and smaller, though still large enough for a child to stand in its eye socket. No one did. General Wei Tsung patrols this river basin, she said. The disposal yard used ministerial roads inside his supply district. Either he knew, or someone used his routes without his knowledge. Which is worse? For him? The second. A general can defend a harsh order. He cannot defend being blind in his own roads. Captain Deng joined us with a courier strip. District beacons at the North Pass. 3 columns. How many? Zhao asked. Too far to count. Formation flags. Heavy wagons. Lin Mei had followed because no courier strip stayed private near her for long. Water wagons? Deng looked at the marks again. Long frames. Bolts carried separately. Zhao's expression changed. Anti-dragon ballistae, she said. That afternoon, the 13 survivors chose whether to remain at their treatment sites or travel inland. All stayed under healer advice except Luoshi, who asked to sit at Reed Ferry where she could see the water. Families took the claimed dead to burial. The unclaimed remained guarded above flood level. Deng's 40 soldiers formed no battle line against their own realm. They maintained evidence custody and sent a formal report toward General Wei. Zhao added her seal. The 3 village councils attached copies of water tests, disposal records, victim testimony, and costs. We prepared reception lanes instead of pretending terms could not matter. One road led to the assembly ground. Another remained open for clean water carts. A third carried patients and children away from any line of fire. No ballista wagon would be allowed to block the spring route. Roof watchers received instructions to report distance, not throw stones. Sling teams stayed hidden unless attacked. Boats moved to side channels beyond direct bolt lanes. I could not fight a disciplined army in my condition. Even healthy, I could not stop ranks, cavalry, and anti-dragon weapons on 3 fronts by standing dramatically in a road. Both corps remained vulnerable. A paired bolt through the chest could pin one and break the other. Nets, formations, exhaustion, and restraints still worked. Crimson liked the thought of the army anyway. Make them kneel before they aim. Difference 5 made the suggestion feel warm and efficient. I ate another bowl of millet, let Su Lian inspect the lung, and asked Lin Mei to watch my right eye during the meeting. Planning to use a technique, she asked. No. Planning to become unbearable? Possibly. I'll bring a larger spoon. By sunset, the North Pass beacons burned in 3 lines. The river below them ran clear. At dawn on the 11th day, 6 scouts planted General Wei Tsung's pennant beyond sling range. Their officer demanded the vessel alive, every dragon source and official record surrendered, the compact disarmed, and the river road opened. He also promised no entry into homes or granaries before our answer. Zhao refused transfer without itemized receipts, contamination safeguards, protected witness terms, and an unimplicated receiving authority. Deng refused to abandon his evidence posts before signed relief. The scout accepted our copies and withdrew. 2 hours later, the first army column came into view. Infantry marched 8 abreast behind tall shields. They kept step across the uneven river road without closing ranks on civilians. Cavalry covered both flanks. Engineers walked beside wagons carrying bridge timber, spare wheels, and coils of heavy rope. Then came the ballistae. Each anti-dragon engine rode on a 4-wheel frame. The throwing arms were laminated dark horn and white sinew. Bolts lay on separate carts, longer than Fun's ferry poles, their heads split into paired metal colors. Azure blue on one edge. Furnace red on the other. Opposing dragon weapons. Both corps recoiled. Dragon eyes showed visible essence along the uncovered heads and old blood in the wood. It could not tell me firing orders, hidden ammunition, or the general's intent. I closed the sight before my eye began bleeding again. 6 ballistae took positions beyond the assembly field. Their crews did not load. The second column secured the northern road and reached Nine Cliff. The third stopped on high ground across the river within firing distance of Reed Ferry. The clean water lanes remained open. General Wei Tsang rode at the center of 40 armored guards. He was broad rather than tall, gray at both temples, and wore a faded cloak patched where an arrow had gone through. His horse drank only after a soldier tested the approved trough in front of him. He dismounted outside the awning and looked first at the evacuation roads, then the watermarks, then the ballista sightlines. Only after that did he look at me. You are Chen Kai. That is the name I'm keeping. Crimson pushed warmth into the answer. I let the humor stay and the threat go. Wei's gaze touched the bandage at my chest, the red flicker in my right eye, and the rope burns at my wrists. Reports call you immortal. I drowned until boatmen pulled me out. Healers removed rot from my lung. A technique rebuilt one section while they kept me breathing. Immortal is a dangerous word around deep water. Ben made a satisfied sound behind Tang. The general turned to Zhao. Inspector, did he destroy a dragon remnant? We defeated one corrupted drowned fragment after it attacked settlements. Its remains and source are separately contained. Records are available under witness. Did he absorb it? No, I said. The physical knot is sealed in your district's stolen disposal bell. Wei's eyes narrowed at the word stolen. My district did not authorize core dumping. Mo Lan opened the copied wagon record. 16 loads entered a county relay office using frontier road marks. No furnace receipt exists. Survivors name relay cords and a county foreman. Ministerial seals can requisition my road marks. Then someone used your road, Eldershan said, your soldiers' names, our river, and dead laborers, and expected each office to blame the next. Wei did not rebuke him for speaking. He asked Su for the dates. The exchange lasted an hour. Victims spoke only if they had chosen. Luosher sat at the edge of the gathering with Tang and Su Lian beside her. She described basket 4, suspension rings, and the paired bell. Ku Yuan did not attend. Ren Yu sent a written mark but remained on the kiln floor. The dead were represented by identification records, not displayed as persuasion. Wei questioned Deng's custody, Zhao's parole, the compact's armed alarms, the water testing, and the sealed sources. He found weaknesses. The independent court relay had not yet acknowledged Wei Lian's case. Zhao's emergency authority could be challenged. The compact had no charter from Jin Luo. The containment pit could not withstand a full army attack or a season of rain. My 5-point crimson imbalance was visible risk. He was not wrong about those facts. Then he stated his terms. All dragon sources transferred to a frontier containment train under joint inventory. My engineers will build a dry stone vault here before movement. Village witnesses may accompany every seal. The Ministerial Archive and Magistrate Wei Lian go to my field court, with Inspector Zhao retaining examination standing and Captain Deng retaining physical custody until receipt. Protected clerks and sorting yard survivors remain free witnesses. No labor contract follows them. He looked at the 3 village representatives. The compact registers provisionally as a disaster militia for 30 days. It keeps local alarms and rescue stores. Heavy weapons, if any, are declared. Grain remains under the district preservation order. My army buys water and food at recorded rates. Then he looked at me. Chen Kai enters my containment camp under guard. Both corps are examined. You use no dragon technique without my order. At sunset tomorrow, you travel north for transfer to the frontier fortress. No, Lin Mei said. 6 ballista crews turned their heads toward her. They did not load. Wei studied the 17-year-old holding an oilskin packet as if it were a spear. Which term? The one that turns medical parole into your possession before the evidence-receiving authority is cleared. The disposal wagons used frontier marks. Your word that you did not authorize them is testimony. It is not yet proof. Captain Deng looked at the ground very carefully. Wei almost smiled. Then offer a counter-term. Zhao spoke before I could. Chen Kai remains at the treatment shelter under my parole, your perimeter, and compact medical custody. No technique except immediate life preservation, reported after use. Ballistae remain unloaded and outside the clean water and evacuation lanes. Joint inventory begins with the sources where they lie. Your investigators examine the relay route while village copies travel independently. No transfer before 3 receiving seals and a medical finding. Wei looked at me. And if I refuse? Behind him stood disciplined infantry, cavalry, engineers, and 6 engines built to kill what lived in my chest. Behind me stood villages exhausted by a river disaster, 40 tax soldiers with divided loyalties only on paper, boat crews, healers, and a cultivator who had already bled holding the fragment. Current essence 130 did not make that geometry disappear. Crimson whispered, "Make him kneel." My right eye heated. Lin Mei said my name quietly. I breathed through the rebuilt section. Pain answered. Air followed. We have had enough of officials who turn people into fuel and call it order, I said. Accept Zhao's terms, General. Refuse them, and you create the battle you claim to prevent. Waitsong raised one hand. All 6 anti-dragon ballista crews moved. Not to fire. To load. The paired blue and red heads settled into their tracks with a sound like 6 doors locking. General Wei kept his hand raised. Your counterterms are heard, he said. Now prove your compact can stand while an army considers them.